The fire had burned down to almost nothing, just a few glowing bones of ember. Holding on in the bitter cold, Cole Dawson fed the last stick of kindling into it and waited, breath fogging in the icy air, until the flame hesitated, then caught. The prairie stretched out around him in a white, frozen hush. Frost crawled along the grass like judgment settling across the land. One blanket, half a pot of weak coffee, and the kind of cold that made a man wonder if he'd still be breathing when morning came. 3 years of drifting, sleeping under open skies and abandoned barns, had stripped Cole down to the basics of survival. 3 years since the drought stole his cattle, and the bank took what the drought didn't, his land. The ranch his father and grandfather had built, gone all in a single season. Gone so fast the dust hadn't even settled before he found himself walking away from everything he'd ever known. He hadn't stepped foot back in town since. He couldn't stand the pity in people's eyes, couldn't stand the way they spoke softer around him, the whispers that followed him like dust in the wind. Out here, no one knew him as the man who failed. Cole poured the last sip of coffee into a dented tin cup. It was barely brown, more like colored water, but it was warm. His mother used to call that a small mercy, and small mercies, she always said, kept a man alive when the big ones ran dry. He lifted the cup to his lips, then he heard it. Soft at first, a creaking sound, rhythmic and slow. Wagon wheels, coming through the frozen hush toward him. Cole stood, instinct kicking in as his hand moved toward his hip before memory stopped it. He didn't have a gun anymore. Sold it 2 months ago for flour and coffee. The wagon came into view, a dark shape rolling out of the twilight. A woman held the reins, shoulders stiff, movements cautious. Beside her sat a small child bundled in what looked like every scrap of fabric they owned. Even from 10 feet away, Cole could see the way the little girl trembled. The wagon halted at the edge of the fire's glow. The woman watched him warily, her face shadowed, but her eyes tired, hollow. Afraid reflected the flames. Cole had next to nothing. Less than nothing, if he was honest. But that little girl looked like she was shaking apart. Ain't much, Cole said, his voice rough from days of silence. But the fire's yours if you want it. The woman didn't move. Her hand tightened on the reins. We don't mean to intrude, she said. Her voice soft but steady, educated, refined, not what he'd expected out here. Fire don't care who sits beside it, Cole replied. Bring the child over before she freezes. She hesitated just one breath longer, then climbed down, lifting the girl into her arms. The child's legs shook so badly they barely held her. Cole pulled his only blanket from his bedroll without hesitation and wrapped it around the girl's shoulders. The little one looked up at him with wide, grateful eyes. Thank you, the woman whispered. Cole nodded and tossed more sagebrush onto the fire, coaxing the flames higher. The woman guided her daughter close, holding her hands toward the heat as the child's shivers slowly eased. Name's Cole Dawson, he said gruffly. Anna, she replied. Anna Witt, just Anna, and this is my daughter, Rosie. He handed Anna the tin cup of coffee. She took it with both hands, like it was something rare. How long since you two ate? Cole asked quietly. Yesterday morning. Cole offered the last of his hardtack and dried beef to Rosie. The little girl ate, with the desperate focus of someone who had forgotten what fullness felt like. Snow began to fall, first small flakes, then heavier ones driven sideways by the rising wind. Cole fed the fire every scrap of wood he had left, then tore sage and buffalo grass from the frozen ground, anything to keep the flames alive. Anna fought sleep, watching Rosie, watching him, but exhaustion pulled at her until she slumped against the wagon wheel. Rosie curled into her side. Cole took off his coat and laid it gently over both of them. Then he sat by the fire and kept watch through the long, brutal night. When dawn finally broke thin and gray snow covered everything, his hands were numb, his body stiff. But Anna and Rosie were alive. Small mercies. Anna stirred first. Confusion flickered across her face until she saw Cole's coat wrapped around her daughter. Her gaze traveled across the fire to him, his shaking hands, the blue-white numbness in his fingers. You stayed awake, she murmured. Fire needed tending. He muttered. And for the first time since he'd lost everything, someone looked at him like he mattered. Asterisk. Anna's eyes dropped to his hands. They were stiff and pale, knuckles raw and split from feeding the fire through the night. When he reached for another handful of sage, his fingers shook. "You're freezing," she said quietly. "I'll warm up," Cole answered. Brushing it off, Anna pushed herself to her feet, still unsteady from the cold. She lifted his coat, walked around the fire, and held it out to him. "Take it back," she insisted. "Nah," he shook his head. "Child needs it more. Cole, please." The way she said his name soft, almost pleading, made him pause. She studied his face for a long second, then turned and tucked the coat more firmly around Rosie's shoulders instead of her own. "Then she'll keep it," Anna said simply. "We'll manage." Cole didn't argue. He didn't have the energy. Instead, he busied himself with the one thing he still had some control over: coffee. There was a little left in the bag, enough to stretch to cups if he boiled extra water and pretended it still had flavor. When the coffee was ready, he poured it into the tin cup and handed it to Anna. "We'll share," she said. They did, passing the cup back and forth in comfortable silence. The coffee was bitter, thin as dishwater, but Anna drank it like it was something fine. Rosie woke slowly, blinking against the pale morning light. Her nose was red, hair mussed, blankets still tucked around her chin. When she noticed Cole watching her, she smiled. "You have kind eyes," she said, as if announcing a simple fact. Anna stiffened, just a little. Cole flushed and ducked his head. "Just regular eyes," he muttered, poking at the fire. "No," Rosie insisted. "Kind ones." He didn't know what to do with that. Kind wasn't something he'd been called in a long time. Not since before the bank men came. Not since before failure seemed to wrap itself around his name. After a while, Anna said quietly, "We're between places. I'm not entirely sure where to go next." "Where are you coming from?" he asked. "Billings way." "East," she nodded. "East. It's been a long road." "A long road for just the two of you," he said, studying the wagon. "Your horse is lame. Left rear leg, she's favoring it." Anna closed her eyes for a moment. "I know. I was hoping to make the next town before she quit on us completely." "Nearest settlement's Timber Ridge," Cole said. "2 days west." He glanced at the horse again. "Maybe 3 with that leg. Maybe more if she goes down." "We'll manage," Anna said automatically. He looked at their thin coats, at the way Rosie still held the blanket tight around her despite the fire, at the hollows under Anna's eyes. "The fire's yours as long as you need it," Cole said. "Stay the day. Rest. Let your horse rest." Too, her jaw tightened, pride rising up like a shield. He recognized it. He'd worn that same look when people tried offering him help after the drought, when he still thought he could fix everything himself. "We don't want to be a burden," she said quietly. "You ain't," he replied. "I got enough for 1, so I'll have enough for 3 instead." "Ain't that much difference?" Rosie looked up at her mother, eyes wide and hopeful. "Please, Mama, just 1 day." Anna's shoulders dropped. She exhaled slowly. "1 day," she agreed. "Then we'll go." "1 day," Cole echoed. But as he watched them settle near the fire, Rosie chattering a little more now that she was warm, Anna's face slowly relaxing, something in his chest that had been frozen for 3 long years gave a small, uncertain crack. The second morning broke with real sunlight. The sky was clear. The air still bit at the skin, but the killing edge of the cold seemed dulled. Rosie followed Cole around like a little shadow, insisting she wanted to help gather kindling. Her small hands fumbled and dropped sticks twice as often as they picked them up, but she laughed every time and tried again. Anna watched them, sitting near the fire with her skirt tucked under her, shoulders less hunched than the day before. For the first time since arriving, she didn't look like she was waiting for something terrible to happen. They ate hardtack softened in hot water and a scrap of dried meat. It wasn't much, but nobody complained. Rosie talked between bites, about stars, about a dog she'd once had named Copper, about the way the wind sounded at night in big houses with big hallways. "What happened to Copper?" Cole asked. Rosie's smile faltered. "We had to leave him behind." Anna's hand found her daughter's shoulder, a small comfort. "Sometimes we have to leave things," she said softly, "so we can keep moving forward." Cole understood that more than she knew. He'd left everything: land, home, Reputation because staying meant being crushed under the weight of what he'd lost. After breakfast, Anna asked the question he'd been half dreading. "Where are you from?" "Cole." He stared into the fire for a long moment. "Had a ranch north of here," he said finally. "Small, but it was mine. My daddy's before me. Lost it 3 years back. Drought took the cattle. Bank took the land." He swallowed. Man who can't hold on to what his family built. "Don't feel like much of a man." "That's not true," Anna said. Her voice firm. "Feels true." She leaned forward slightly, eyes steady on his. "My father used to say a man isn't measured by what he keeps," she said, "but by what he gives." She glanced at Rosie. "You gave us warmth when you had almost none. Food when you were hungry yourself. That's not nothing, Cole, that's everything." Her words settled inside him like coals uncomfortable, unfamiliar, but warm. "You heading to Timber Ridge?" he asked, needing to move the conversation somewhere safer. "I suppose," she said. "I need to find work. Somewhere Rosie can be safe. Somewhere we can." She searched for the words. "Start over." He nodded slowly. "I could guide you there," he said. "If you'd like the company, we'd slow you down." "I ain't got anywhere to be," he said. "Not anymore, Mama." Rosie piped up. "He's kind. Can he come with us?" Anna looked at her daughter, then at him. Something unspoken passed between them, a shared understanding of people who'd both lost more than they cared to say. "We'd be grateful," she said softly. "Mr. Dawson." "Just Cole." "Cole," she corrected, with the smallest hint of a smile. He stood and began to break camp. It didn't take long. He didn't own much to pack, for the first time in 3 years. When he saddled his horse and turned his face toward the horizon, he wasn't riding into it alone. They traveled west under a sky so wide it felt like it might swallow them whole. The prairie rolled on in endless waves of brittle winter grass. But the sun was out and the worst of the cold had eased. Cole rode ahead, scanning the land with an instinct that came from years of working cattle and following tracks. Behind him, the wagon creaked along, Anna steady on the reins, while Rosie hummed a tuneless little song. For the first time in 3 years, the weight in Cole's chest didn't feel like an anchor. It felt lighter, not gone, but eased, like something frozen had begun to thaw. By midday, they stopped near a cluster of cottonwoods so the horse could rest. Cole helped Rosie down, lifting her easily from the wagon seat. She laughed when he swung her in the air, and the sound hit him somewhere deep, like he hadn't heard real laughter in ages. Anna climbed down next, brushing dust from her skirt. She watched them with a soft look. Cole pretended not to notice. "You sure we're not slowing you down?" she asked. Cole shrugged. Not in any hurry, and it was the truth. For once, he didn't feel the usual pressure to outrun memory or judgment. For once, he didn't mind the company. Rosie tugged on his sleeve. "Cole, can you show me how to tie rope like you showed me yesterday?" He hesitated, then smiled. "Sure can." They sat under the cottonwoods while Anna prepared what little lunch they had. Rosie tried tying knots, messing them up, untying them, trying again. She giggled every time the rope tangled into something unusable. Anna looked up from her task now and then, watching them with quiet gratitude. When they finished eating, Cole mounted up again, and the wagon followed. They traveled until the sun hung low, painting the land in copper and gold. Rosie fell asleep in the back, curled under Cole's blanket. Anna drove in silence for a long time before she finally spoke. "You said you drifted after losing your ranch." "Yeah," Cole replied. "Didn't make much sense to stay. Everybody knew what happened. Felt like every look said the same thing. There goes the man who lost it all." Anna's hands tightened on the reins. "People can be cruel without ever meaning to." "Yeah," he said. "Sometimes they don't even know they're doing it." They found a sheltered spot near a shallow creek to camp. Cole unsaddled his horse, checked the wagon, then built a fire while Anna heated water. When it was ready, she pulled out a small pouch of dried herbs, rosemary and thyme. The scent drifted through the crisp air, making Cole's stomach growl. "Where'd you learn to cook like that?" he asked. "My father insisted," Anna said with a faint smile. "He said a woman should be capable in every way, cooking, reading, accounts. That she should know how to survive. Sounds like a wise man. He was," she said quietly. The past tense hung painfully in the air. They didn't talk much after that. They didn't need to. Rosie fell asleep by the fire with her head on Anna's lap, and Cole watched the flames dance while the cold settled again. The next morning, they continued west. The days blurred together in the best way coffee shared 3 ways, miles of open land. The sun warm on their backs. Cole hunted when he could and managed to catch a rabbit on the second day. Anna cooked it with her herbs, and Cole couldn't remember the last time he tasted food that good. "You're spoiling me," he said around a mouthful. "It's just rabbit." "Cole, it's better than anything I've eaten in years," he replied, which made her cheeks warm. On the third day, Rosie asked him to show her how to braid rope again. She tangled it worse this time, laughing harder each time Cole tried to help. "She likes you," Anna said softly. "I like her too," Cole answered without thinking. "She's a good kid." Anna smiled faintly, something soft flickering in her eyes. "She asked me yesterday if you could stay with us once we reach town." Cole froze. The thought hit him harder than he expected. "What did you tell her?" he asked. I didn't know what to tell her. He didn't either. He'd spent 3 years running from everything he'd lost. From shame, from pity, from the emptiness of having nothing left to offer the world. And now here he was, following a wagon carrying a woman with eyes like dawn after a storm, and a child who saw goodness in him before he ever believed it existed. That night, they came upon a swollen creek. Meltwater from distant mountains had turned it into a churning rush, brown with mud. The wagon couldn't cross safely. "We'll have to find another way around," Anna said. But Cole was already stepping into the water, boots sinking deep into the freezing current. He tested the river bottom with a long branch, searching for stable footing. The cold bit into his legs like knives, but he kept moving. "There," he said finally. Narrow path, treacherous, but doable. It was grueling work, Cole guiding the horse from the water, Anna keeping the wagon wheels straight, Rosie clutching the side rail with wide eyes. When the wagon finally rolled onto the far bank, Anna stepped down and her knees buckled. Cole caught her before she hit the ground. "Easy now," he murmured. "You're all right." Water dripped from her hair, her clothes, her lashes. She looked up at him, breath coming in uneven bursts. Something passed between them, wordless, deep, unsettling. "Thank you," she whispered. He helped her to dry ground and rebuilt the fire with trembling hands. They huddled around the flames while their clothes dried, Rosie falling asleep between them. "You're good at this," Anna said quietly. "At what?" "Taking care of people." Cole stared into the fire. "Used to be better at it. Before I lost everything." Anna's hand brushed his, a brief, trembling touch. "You haven't lost everything, Cole. You're still here, and that still counts." Her touch lingered long after she pulled away. Cole lay awake long after she slept, listening to the crackling fire and Rosie's quiet breathing. He was falling for her, clear as daylight. He was falling for her, and it scared him more than anything he'd faced since losing the ranch. By the 4th afternoon on the trail, the sky had turned a steely gray, clouds gathering thick and heavy above the horizon. The prairie wind cut sharper, hinting at another storm. Cole kept glancing back toward the wagon, watching Anna's face, the tight line of her mouth, the way she held the reins as if bracing for something she hadn't yet told him. He wasn't wrong. Just before sunset, after hours of silence, she finally spoke. "Cole," she said softly, "I should tell you something, but I don't know how." He slowed his horse so he could hear her. "We got time." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Whatever she wanted to say stuck like a stone in her throat. Instead, she simply said, "Thank you for guiding us this far." He knew she wasn't telling him the whole truth, but he didn't push her. Everyone had ghosts. Some were just louder than others. They camped near a cluster of pines, using the trees to block the worst of the wind. Cole built the fire high, his hands moving in automatic motions. Anna and Rosie worked on dinner, hardtack softened in hot water, a bit of dried meat, a few herbs from Anna's pouch to stretch the flavor. It wasn't much, but it was warm. After they ate, Rosie curled up in Cole's old blanket and drifted to sleep beside the fire. Cole sat across from Anna, leaning back on one arm, watching the sparks rise into the night sky. "You're quiet tonight," she said gently. "So are you." She stared into the flames. "Just thinking." "About what?" Anna hesitated, then met his eyes. about how sometimes starting over means letting go of who you thought you had to be. The fire cracked loudly between them. That so? Cole asked. Yes, her voice softened. And maybe about how some people don't walk away, even when they have nothing left to give. He held her gaze for a long moment. I walked away plenty, he admitted. Ran, mostly. Running isn't always wrong, she said. Sometimes it's the only way to survive. He nodded slowly. He knew that truth better than anyone. They fell into a silence that felt strangely comforting to people sitting near a fire, sharing pain without naming it. Cole didn't know what tomorrow held. He didn't know what she planned to do once they reached Timber Ridge, but sitting there with her, watching Rosie sleep between them, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Belonging. The next day, the road dipped into a shallow valley. The sun broke through the clouds just long enough to warm their faces. Rosie sang a little tune she'd made up on the spot-off key, sweet, the kind of noise that made Cole's chest ache in a warm way. But just before noon, the sky darkened again, and the land changed. They reached a creek swollen with snowmelt. The water wasn't the gentle trickle Cole had hoped for. It was a rushing, brown torrent that roared like something alive. We can't cross here, Anna said immediately. Cole swung off his horse and tried the water anyway. It climbed fast ankle, knee, thigh cold enough to steal his breath. But he kept going, testing the ground with a long branch until he found a narrow band of rocks beneath the surface. Found a path, he said through gritted teeth. Not a good one, but a possible one. It took nearly an hour to guide the wagon across. Anna leaned forward, knuckles white on the reins, guiding the horse with firm commands. Cole walked knee-deep in freezing water, pushing at the wagon wheels, steadying the load. Rosie clung to the seat, eyes wide but trusting. The wagon lurched dangerously once when a wheel caught a submerged stone, and once when a hidden log slammed into the axle. Both times Anna gasped. Both times Cole shoved the wagon straight, refusing to let go. When they finally reached the far bank, Anna climbed down and her legs immediately buckled. Cole caught her before she hit the ground easy. He murmured, "You're all right." She was drenched, hair dripping, coat heavy with water. She stared up at him, breathing hard. Something deep and unguarded flickered in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Not polite, not formal, raw, honest. He helped her to dry ground and built the fire quickly, his trembling hands giving away how cold he truly was. They sat close while their clothes steamed in the heat. Rosie fell asleep between them again, curls damp against her forehead. "You're good at this," Anna said softly. "At what?" "Taking care of people." Cole stared at the flames. "Was better at it once. Before I lost everything." "You haven't lost everything, Cole." Anna's voice was barely above the wind. "You're still here, still doing what's right when it's hard. That's worth more than you think." Her hand brushed against his, a fleeting touch, gentle as breath. But Cole felt it like lightning. He wanted to take her hand fully, wanted to pull her close, wanted to rest his forehead against hers and admit things he'd never said out loud. But he didn't. Because what did he have to offer her? He was a broke drifter with a horse that limped on cold mornings. She was a widow trying to rebuild a life for her child. What business did he have wanting more? That night, while Anna slept curled around Rosie, Cole lay awake staring at the stars, wheeling across the sky. He was falling for her. Fast, hard, dangerously, and he had no idea what would happen when they reached Timber Ridge, only that something was coming, something big, and the road ahead might break what little he had left. Timber Ridge came into view at sunset. On the sixth day, a small settlement tucked between rolling hills, smoke curling from chimneys, lanterns glowing warmly in windows as families prepared supper. It should have felt like relief, safety, a destination finally reached. But Anna tugged the reins and brought the wagon to a stop half a mile shy of town. She stared at the cluster of buildings, her posture rigid, shoulders tight. Cole rode up beside her. "Something wrong?" "No," she said a beat too late. "Just, towns make me nervous now." Cole didn't press. "We can camp out here tonight. Go in when you're ready." Relief washed over her face, subtle but unmistakable. They made camp in a stand of cottonwoods. The fire felt different. This close to civilization, less desperate, less vital, but they built it anyway. Habit, comfort, something to do with their hands while the world around them shifted. After Rosie fell asleep curled under Cole's old blanket, he and Anna sat on opposite sides of the fire, legs stretched toward the warmth, backs resting against their bedrolls. For a long time, they said nothing. Finally, Cole spoke. "You asked before about shame." He turned a twig between his fingers. "Truth is, I've been ashamed for 5 years. Ashamed I couldn't save the ranch. Ashamed I didn't stay and face folks when I lost it. Ashamed I ran." Anna listened quietly, eyes soft in the firelight. "Shame's a heavy thing to carry." He added. Anna folded her hands in her lap. "I know something about that, do you?" "Yes." Her voice trembled not from the cold, but from memory. "After my husband died, people had opinions about everything. Where I should live, what I should do, how I should raise Rosie. They made me feel like wanting freedom made me selfish." "That ain't selfish," Cole said firmly. "That's brave." She looked at him, really looked, and something in her face changed, softened, opened. "What if starting over," she whispered, "means letting go of who you thought you had to be?" Then, Cole said slowly, "Maybe we're both starting over." The words hung between them, heavy with meaning neither dared to speak aloud. Rosie stirred in her sleep and mumbled something about horses. Anna smiled despite herself, brushing her daughter's hair back tenderly. "She likes you," Anna said softly. "I like her too." Cole's chest tightened. "She asked me yesterday if I'd stay with you both." After Timber Ridge, Anna's breath hitched. Barely noticeable, except Cole noticed everything where she was concerned. "What did you tell her?" he asked. "I didn't know what to tell her." Cole nodded slowly, looking away toward the fire. His heart pounded in a way that scared him, not like fear, like hope. And hope was far more dangerous. An hour later, the fire burned low. Rosie slept deeply, blanket tucked up to her chin. Anna stood abruptly, wiping her palms on her skirt. "I should sleep. Tomorrow will be difficult." He wanted to ask why, but the way she turned, shoulders drawn in, told him the question would break her. So he let her go. Cole stayed by the fire, watching the flames flicker, feeling the warmth slip away from his face as doubt crept into the spaces hope had filled. Whatever lay ahead in Timber Ridge, it wasn't going to be easy. Morning came clearer than any day before. Sunlight stretched over the prairie as the town finally woke in full. They rode in slowly, Cole on horseback, Anna leading the wagon, Rosie sitting tall beside her. Timber Ridge was bigger than Cole expected. A wide dirt street, a church steeple, a blacksmith hammering iron, general store, apothecary, livery stable. People moved about with purpose. He could feel Anna shrinking into herself as they approached. They tied the horses outside the general store. Anna kept her shawl pulled tightly, head low. Cole pushed open the door. The bell above it jingled. Inside smelled of fresh coffee, leather, sawdust. A half-dozen customers browsed quietly. Then the storekeeper, an older man with steel-gray whiskers, looked up from his ledger. His eyes went wide. His face turned pale. "Mrs. Whitlow," he breathed. The words cracked like a gunshot. "Anna Whitlow from the railroad fortune." The store went dead silent. Anna froze. Cole's blood ran cold. Anna tried. "You must be mistaken." "No, ma'am," the storekeeper insisted. "Your husband came through here 6 years back talking about railroad expansion. Had your portrait in his pocket. Showed everyone." Whispers erupted instantly. "That's the Whitlow woman. Railroad money. What's she doing here? Who's that man with her?" Cole's world tilted sideways. "Whitlow, Thomas Whitlow, railroad magnate, owner of half the territory, one of the wealthiest men west of the Mississippi. Anna was his widow. Anna, who cooked rabbit in a tin pot. Anna, who shivered under his blanket. Anna, who slept under his coat and thanked him like she had nothing. She was one of the richest women in the West. She hadn't lied, but she'd let him believe they were the same." The storekeeper kept going, oblivious to the devastation he was causing. "Your husband's family has been searching for you. Said you ran off with your daughter without a word. Whole territory's been looking. They weren't worried." Anna snapped, voice cutting like steel. "They wanted to control us, control Rosie." Cole stepped back, then another step. The roaring in his ears drowned out everything else. Anna wasn't helpless. She never had been. He turned, walked out of the store, and didn't stop walking. Anna's voice followed him out. "Cole, please." But he kept moving. "Cole, let me explain." He stopped, then just stopped but didn't turn around. "Couldn't." His voice came out raw. "You lied." "I didn't lie, you let me think we were the same," he said, shaking, "both running, both with nothing. Cole, I gave you everything I had because I thought you needed it. I did need it." He turned then, eyes burning. "What? Not the fire, not the food, not the coat. What could I give you that a fortune couldn't buy 1,000 times over?" Rosie was crying now. Anna, too. But Cole couldn't stay. He wouldn't survive it. So he walked away, leaving the store, the town, and the only thing that had made him feel alive in years. Cole walked until Timber Ridge faded behind him, until the sound of voices and wagons and life disappeared completely. He didn't stop until the sky bruised into twilight and the cold crept in again. 5 miles north of town, he finally collapsed beside a scraggly patch of sagebrush and built a fire, small, mean, barely holding on. Just like him, anger hit first, hot and sharp. Then the hurt came slow, crushing, heavy enough to swallow him whole. He'd shared his last blanket with her, his last food, his only coat. He'd stayed up all night feeding the fire so she and Rosie wouldn't freeze. He'd walked knee-deep in freezing water to push her wagon across. Hadn't eaten enough, hadn't slept enough, hadn't thought of anything except keeping them safe, and all along, she had the world waiting for her. Money, power, security, a future. She didn't need him. She never had. Cole stared into the fire, jaw tight. The flames blurred, and he blinked hard, refusing to let the sting reach his eyes. "Fool," he muttered to himself. "You're a fool for thinking you belonged anywhere near her." He threw another stick on the fire and watched sparks float off like lost hopes. Around midnight, hoof beats broke the silence. Cole stood instantly, reaching for a gun he didn't have anymore. But the riders weren't bandits, just an older couple on a paint horse, the woman sitting behind the man. They rode toward the fire with cautious kindness in their faces. "Evenin'," the man said. "Saw your fire. Wanted to make sure you're all right." Cole forced a shrug. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine," the woman said gently. She had gray hair pulled into a neat bun and eyes that saw straight through him. "You look like a man whose heart just got stomped on." Cole tried to laugh. It came out jagged. "Something like that." The man swung off the horse. "Walter Hale," he said, offering a calloused hand. "This here's my wife, Helen." Cole shook their hands numbly. "Cole Dawson." Helen's expression softened. "A boy in town asked us to bring this to you." She held out an envelope. Cole didn't recognize the handwriting, small, careful, slightly uneven, until he saw his name spelled out. Mr. Cole in Rosie's spelling. Our backwards, hands shaking, he opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. He read it, then read it again, then a third time. "Dear Cole, Mama says you should know the truth, so I'm telling you. You made me feel safe. You made Mama smile again. You gave us fire and your last blanket. Mama says that makes you the richest man she knows. Please come back. We miss you. Love, Rosie Press." Mama's crying. She won't say it, but she loves you. Cole's throat closed. The letter trembled in his hands. "What's it say?" Helen asked, voice soft. Cole took a breath. "Says I'm a coward." Walter barked a laugh. "Then that letter's smarter than most men I know." Cole stared at the fire. "I walked away because I thought I wasn't good enough, that she deserved better than a poor man with nothing." Walter sat beside him, lowering himself carefully. "Son, what makes you think you got nothing to offer?" Cole gestured toward his horse. "Look at me. I lost my ranch. Been drifting for years. I got one lame horse and less than $10 to my name." Helen knelt beside the fire, eyes bright. "And you shared it all with a stranger and her child. You kept them warm, fed them, protected them, made a little girl laugh, made her mother feel safe." She shook her head. "You call that nothing?" Walter leaned in. "A woman don't run from wealth to freeze on the prairie. Unless she's looking for something money can't buy," Helen added. "Looks to me like she found it." Their words hit Cole harder than any punch ever had. Respect, kindness, safety. Maybe those were worth something after all. Walter stood and dusted off his coat. "Question is, are you brave enough to claim it?" Cole looked down at Rosie's letter, the crooked letters, the childish honesty. He felt something break open inside him, something he'd locked away for years. "How far back to town?" he asked. Walter grinned. "Not far at all if you ride fast." Cole didn't hesitate. He threw dirt over the fire, saddled his horse with shaking hands, and swung into the saddle. Helen called after him, voice warm and certain, "Go get your family, son." And for the first time in 5 years, the word family didn't hurt. It felt like hope. Dawn was breaking when Cole reached Timber Ridge. The town was stirring, shopkeepers sweeping porches, lanterns being snuffed out, church bells ringing. A fancy black carriage sat in the square, 2 men in crisp city suits standing beside it, talking to Anna. She looked exhausted, pale, defeated. Rosie clung to her skirt. Cole climbed down and walked toward them with slow, steady steps. Anna saw him first. Her breath caught. Her hand went to her mouth. The suited men turned. "Annoyed, Mrs. Whitlow," one snapped. "We must insist you return to Billings at once. Your late husband's family has obligations to fulfill." I said no, Anna snapped. The man huffed. "Your daughter's inheritance will wait until she's grown." Cole stepped closer, removed his hat. "Anna," he said, voice quiet but steady, "I need to say something." The townsfolk around them froze. Even the suited men went silent. Cole's heart hammered, but he didn't look away from her. "I was wrong yesterday." Anna's eyes filled instantly. "I walked away because I thought a poor man had no right to stand beside you. But that girl of yours taught me something. She taught me wealth ain't measured in gold or land. It's measured in what you give when giving costs everything." A tear slipped down Anna's cheek. "You gave me trust," Cole said. "She gave me her smile. And I gave you a fire and a blanket. Didn't seem like much, but maybe small things are the biggest things we got." He swallowed hard. "I can't give you a mansion, or servants, or fancy dresses, but I can give you a home, one built on choosing each other every day. And I can love that little girl like she was mine from the start." Rosie broke free and ran to him, sobbing. Cole caught her easily. "You came back," she cried. "A man's word is his bond," he whispered. Anna walked toward him, tears shining, hope trembling in her eyes, and Cole knew he'd never walk away again. Anna moved toward him slowly, like a woman stepping out of a dream she thought she'd already lost. The suited men protested, the crowd murmured, but none of it mattered. Cole only saw her eyes shining with tears, breath trembling, hope flickering like a fragile flame waiting for someone to cup their hands around it. Rosie clung to Cole's neck, sobbing into his shoulder. He held her gently, one hand supporting her small back. Anna stopped in front of him, close enough that he could feel the unsteady rise and fall of her breath. "The night you shared your fire," she whispered, voice cracking, "you gave me something I'd never had, not in all the years of living in that big house. A man who wanted nothing from me. No money, no control, no expectations." She swallowed hard. "Just warmth, just kindness, just you." The words nearly ended him. Cole shifted Rosie to one arm and reached for Anna's hand with the other. Her palm was cold. He warmed it between his fingers, gently, reverently. "I thought you deserved better than me," he said quietly. "Better than the man who kept my daughter alive." Anna shook her head. "Better than the man who stayed awake all night just to keep a small fire burning so we could sleep. Better than the man who waded into an icy river because he refused to let us drown." Her voice dropped to a trembling whisper. "There's no better than that." The lawyer nearest them cleared his throat loudly, irritated. "Mrs. Whitlow, this display is highly irregular. Your late husband's estate." "I don't care," Anna snapped. She didn't even look at him. Her gaze stayed locked on Cole. "My life is mine. Rosie's life is hers. And we choose who comes with us." Cole stared at her, unable to speak. Something warm and terrifying rose in his chest. He knew what it was, even if he'd never said the word aloud. "Love." Anna continued softly. "I don't want a mansion. I don't want servants. I don't want a life built out of expectations and obligations." She stepped closer. "I want the man who gave us his last blanket and pretended he wasn't cold." The crowd murmured, some in surprise, some in delight, some in admiration. But Anna didn't care who watched. She touched Cole's face lightly, as though afraid he'd disappear. "I want you," she whispered. Cole exhaled shakily. He lowered Rosie to the ground. The little girl immediately wrapped herself around his leg like she never meant to let go again. He took both of Anna's hands in his. "I ain't a rich man," he said hoarsely. "Ain't got a home, ain't got a ranch, ain't got more than a few dollars to my name. You have the only thing that matters," Anna said. "A good heart, and what if that ain't enough?" He asked, voice raw. "It is," she said. "It always was." He cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing away her tears. She leaned into his touch, eyes closing for a moment like she'd found a harbor she had been searching for all her life. "Ask me to stay," she whispered. "Ask me, Cole." He took a breath, deep and steady, the kind a man takes when deciding the rest of his life. "Anna Whitlow," he said softly, "will you build a life with me? Not a rich one, not an easy one, just one we choose together." Her eyes filled again, but she smiled a real smile, bright and breaking open something in him that had been locked for too long. "I already have," she murmured. And then she kissed him. It wasn't a dramatic kiss, not a storybook swoon. It was soft, trembling, a whisper of warmth in the cold morning air, but it hit Cole harder than any storm ever had. He felt every mile he'd traveled, every failure, every lonely night break apart and fall away. The crowd erupted in applause. Even the lawyers had enough sense to bow their heads respectfully, realizing they were witnessing something they couldn't file or negotiate. Rosie squealed and hugged them both around the legs. Cole lifted her up so all three of them stood together, a family, not by blood or money, but by choice. Anna rested her head on his shoulder briefly before turning to the lawyers with steel in her eyes. "Draw up whatever papers you need. Put Rosie's inheritance in trust until she's of age. But leave us alone. We're staying here. We're starting over." The lawyers exchanged looks but nodded. "As you wish, Mrs. Whitlow." "No," Cole said gently, arm wrapped around Anna's waist. "Call her Anna Dawson." Anna's breath hitched, and the smile that broke across her face made every hardship worth it. "You'd take my name?" she whispered. "If you'll take mine," he replied. Rosie clapped her hands so hard she nearly lost her balance. "Mama, can he be my real papa now?" Anna and Cole looked at each other. Warmth, love, home. "Yes," Anna whispered. "I think he already is." The crowd cheered again. Someone shouted for the church bells. Someone else started crying. Cole didn't care. He had Anna's hand in his, Rosie's arms around his neck, and for the first time in 5 long, empty years, he had a future. Spring arrived quietly, that year like it, too, was tired of harsh winters and long roads. 3 months after Timber Ridge, the world softened. Snow melted. Grass returned in pale green patches. The creek thawed into a gentle trickle, and in a small cabin just beyond the settlement, Cole Dawson woke to a life he'd never dared dream he'd deserve. Sunlight filtered through the single window, painting warm stripes across the quilt. Anna lay beside him, breathing softly, one hand curled beneath her cheek. Cole watched her for a long moment, still in awe that she was real, that she'd chosen him, that this warm bed and this quiet morning belonged to him now. From the next room came Rosie's humming light, off-key, cheerful as a bluebird announcing dawn. Cole slipped from bed, stoked the fire, and brewed coffee. Real coffee now, strong, rich, not the weak brown water he'd once stretched to survive. He poured Anna a cup, and when she sat up, sleepy-eyed and smiling softly, he handed it to her. "Your coffee's gotten better," she teased. He grinned. "Figured we could afford the fancy beans now. I didn't marry you for the coffee, Cole Dawson." She murmured. "Good," he replied, leaning down to kiss her forehead. "Because it's still terrible if you ask me." She laughed, the kind of laugh that filled the small cabin like sunshine. "Lawyers came by yesterday," she said after a moment, brushing hair behind her ear. "While you were repairing the fence line." Cole stiffened, but she reached for his hand. "It's all settled," she said. "Rosie's inheritance stays in trust till she's grown. No one controls anything. Not our lives, not our choices." She looked around their modest cabin, rough-hewn walls, handmade furniture, patched curtains. "This life suits me. It feels like ours." Cole exhaled in relief. "It feels like home." In the other room, Rosie sat at the table with a pencil stub. tongue poking between her teeth as she carefully formed letters in her primer. "How's the studying going, little bird?" Cole asked, leaning over her shoulder. She beamed. "I can write your name. Want to see?" She held up the paper proudly. Cole, the letters uneven, the E crooked, but perfect in every way. "That's real good," Cole said, ruffling her hair. "Miss Porter says I'm her best student." Anna appeared in the doorway. Miss Porter might be a little biased. Rosie giggled. Life in Timber Ridge was simple but full. Anna had become the settlement's unofficial school teacher. Children gathered in the church hall each morning to learn their letters, numbers, and stories. Rosie attended like the others, proud to have her mother at the front of the room. Cole worked for Walter and Helen Hale, the older couple who'd found him on that cold night. Walter gave him honest work: ranch repairs, fence mending, herding cattle. Not much pay, but steady, respectful, the kind of work that made a man feel useful again. Neighbors often stopped by. Martha and Henry Doyle brought pie on Thursdays. The Sullivan boys came by to trade milk for Anna's biscuits. Folks in Timber Ridge didn't care about money or status, they cared about character. And Cole fit right in. One evening, after sharing pie and coffee with the neighbors, Cole, Anna, and Rosie sat together by the fire. The old blanket, the same one Cole had wrapped around Rosie on that first freezing night, was draped over her shoulders. Rosie stroked the worn fabric. "This blanket smells like the night we met," she said sleepily. Anna looked at Cole with soft eyes. "You kept it all this time?" Cole shrugged, embarrassed. "Figured it brought me luck." Anna leaned her head on his shoulder. "Not luck, Cole, grace." He thought about that word. Grace. Unearned mercy. The kind that comes when you least deserve it. The kind that slips in like starlight through cracked shutters. The kind that keeps a dying fire alive long enough for morning to find its way back. That's what Anna and Rosie had. Then grace in the bitter cold. Grace when he had nothing left. Grace that made him believe he could be more. Rosie yawned and curled into Anna's lap. "Tell me the beginning again," she murmured. "The part where you almost didn't let us stay." Anna raised an eyebrow at Cole. He cleared his throat. "Well, little bird, truth is, I was scared." "Scared of what?" Rosie asked. "Scared I didn't have enough to share." Rosie blinked sleepily. "But you shared anyway. That's why it's a good story." She fell asleep moments later. Head nestled against her mama's heart. The fire crackled softly. Outside, the prairie was turning green again, wildflowers sprouting, life returning. The world was healing, slow but steady. Inside, warmth filled every corner of the cabin. Anna rested her head on Cole's shoulder. Cole wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. Home wasn't the cabin, wasn't the land, wasn't the coffee or the furniture or the work. Home was the warmth he chose to share, even when he had almost nothing left to give. And because he shared it, he gained everything. Cole closed his eyes as the fire glowed steady and sure. Morning would come, work would come, life good, honest life would come. But for now, there was this, Anna's breath against his shoulder, Rosie's soft snore, a fire burning warm and bright. Grace. Quiet and steady, like first snow, and it had stayed.